Okay, so Sonny Hill,
Yes.
tell our readers who you are, when you started writing, and what you like writing about.
Okay. So I started writing as a fairly young adult, and but it didn't really. I guess you say maybe it was a jump start, and it just sort of happened. I was on a vacation in the Bahamas, and while I was there, I had an incident that happened where I was on a beach and with a group of people, and it was raining outside, and this man, this pitch black man, just shows up out of nowhere. We're supposed to be on a deserted island, and he says to me, "You want to take a jog?" And so it felt like a movie. And so anyway, I left the group, went with this strange man. We got in the water, we talked, and while I was in the water, I just began to have like an epiphany of the environment and the rocks and the rain, and it was just really a beautiful moment. And so I just felt the need when I returned back home to write about it. And so and it turned into a poem, and I shared it with some friends. And one guy who was a very dark skinned man, I think it just really just fed him so much. He was there. My friends were like, "Oh my God, it's wonderful!" And then this guy was like, "Well, can you do two poems?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I can do two," you know. And so it just kind of started like that, of just having friends encouraging me in the gift of a poet, but it wasn't really something that I was searching for. I think I had the desire down deep to write, but that just really just kind of spurred the whole writing thing.
So the trip on the beach was really kind of a gamble that turned into a lifelong love, or exposed a lifelong love.
It did. It really did. Yeah. And it was just so random because, like I said, it was supposed to be on a deserted island. So to have this huge black goddess of a man pick me out, little skinny thing, and he's just walking by, "I want to take a jog," and I was like, "I'm having a moment." So I've always kind of lived in a romantic world anyway, so I think it just spurred me to just begin to write that on paper.
Now, did that just happen to be the inspiration for Brown Man?
That's a very good question. Actually, it did, because that was the second poem that I wrote. So the first one was called A Rhythmic Revelation, which was actually taken from this book. So that was the poem where I met the gentleman the stranger, the gentleman on the beach. And then after that, I thought, well, I've got one man poem. I guess I'll come up with another man poem. So I came up with the Brown Man.
Okay. I've always been of the opinion that what I see on television is either someone's reality or someone's fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And on your website, you say that your inspiration comes from God, nature, music, and an overactive imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about this overactive imagination.
Well, like I said, I always am. I think as a writer, you're always looking for stories in the smallest of things. A writer, a poet. And so I could see a leaf fall, and I could look at it and think, "Oh my God, where did the leaf come from?" And then I can look around the whole, environment. Like the other day, I was in my neighborhood, and I was walking around the lake, and it was the first time I had actually saw that the trees were bare. And I thought, there's beauty in bare leaves, in bare trees. Just like with humans, when we're unclothed emotionally or physically, like there's just so much vulnerability in that. And I begin to see the shapes, and just to show that the vulnerability of the shapes, like you get to see the true structure when we're actually undressed. And so, and in that, it was like, I could probably write something about this. So I'm still in sentences all the time. I'll hear people mention sentences and phrases, and I'm like, I'm going to use that in a story or in a poem. So that's my overactive imagination, just always at work.
Well, you mentioned the bareness. as you were talking, what was running through my mind is that I think frequently we miss out on the real beauty of nature, the real beauty of the things around us, simply because we expected leaves,
Yeah.
and because we don't see the leaves, we think that this is not a good tree or it's not a beautiful tree. But when we look at the things as they are, then we can see, okay, there's beauty in the tree without leaves,
Yes.
and then there's beauty in the tree with the leaves.
Yes.
So it's beautiful year round, in other words.
Yes, it is. It is. And you asked something earlier, and I didn't really preface talking about how God is the inspiration. And so I think about how when the Word talks about God, like He even had to get away to be with His Father. It said He went away into the wilderness. And so I often go away into the wilderness, and I'll just get thoughts and ideas about writing, or really just about life in the world. And so, so the whole being in nature, loving it, running in it, walking in it, driving in it, and even when I'm driving on country roads, a lot of times I'll hear stories or thoughts going through my mind, and all the stories don't always make it on paper, but I have these glorious life happening on the inside of me. A lot of times that I get very excited about.
Do you keep a notepad or journal with you all the time so you can jot these things down?
Well, right now in this present age, my phone
Okay.
is what I do. So I go into my notes. I know. I go into my notes on my phone and think, oh my God, I could be at work. Oh my God, I got a thought, and I'll go back and I'll say poetry ideas. So I have them on my phone. And so then I can go back and look at the notes on my phone and see like this was really good. Or sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I can have a thought, and I'll just jot it down in my phone, because my writing is horrible. So when I do write it down, sometimes I can't even read it. So.
So in other words, you have to get a degree in Chinese to read your own handwriting.
Exactly.
Well, whenever I hand someone something that's handwritten, I says, I hope you brushed up on your Chinese before you look at this.
I'll have to remember to use that.
And that usually kind of works out okay. But they take a little bit more time to try to figure it out. So, you tell us about the Sisters of Soul reading group.
Mm-hmm.
And which book did they read?
Oh gosh, they read. They started out with Walking into Love. This is the book that they read, and those women treated me like you would have thought I was Oprah coming through. I mean, they had cameras and everything. Was really a beautiful event. So they started out with this book, and so when I actually arrived in the space, some of them had actually bought An Artist in Her Basement. They bought Falling for the Shoemaker. But this is actually the book that they wrote. And this book is loosely based on my mother, and my grandmother, because I like to write books with multi-generational themes in them so that every woman can identify with them. But they're all romance, they're all love stories. And I really focus on the men being unconditional lovers in the book, the way Christ is supposed to be unconditional to us, so it kind of mimics like the marriage of the man laying down his life for his wife. So even if they're not married, he's patient, he's kind, he's waiting on her to heal and on her to grow. So
Where's that one man you're talking about?
They're out there.
They're out there.
Positive.
Really?
Yeah,
You sure?
Yeah. They're out there. They're out there. Yeah, they're definitely out there. I hear women talking about that they are definitely out there. So, and I believe that they are. But I don't think that they all have that kind of a revelation though, of being that Christ, of washing that woman with that word and loving her as he loves his own body. And so I just don't think they really always have that revelation of their place, and to know that she is their garden. And if they nurture that garden properly, they'll get a whole lot of fruit back, more fruit back than the seeds they planted. So that's how
I'm not going to debate you on that. I have some lived experiences.
Okay.
But when I saw the title,
Uh-huh.
Artist in the Basement,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that you have an overactive imagination, and I've always had a very vivid imagination myself.
Uh-huh.
And when I saw the title, Artist in the Basement,
Uh-huh.
I kind of thought of some sinister things,
Uh-huh.
because I've seen a lot of movies where the person in the basement was not a very kind person. The person in the basement was somebody that nobody wanted him there or wanted her there, and they were very upset when they discovered that that person was there. So
Right.
tell us about The Artist in the Basement.
The Artist in the Basement was probably one of the most unique books that I've written, and that was probably the book where the characters actually talked to me, like they woke me up in the middle of the night with dialogue. And so, kind of back to that unconditional, man kind of a lover kind of a thing. So I have the woman, the protagonist in the book, and she is dealing with a lot of rejection. Her husband has left her. She's more of a full-figured woman. Her husband left her for a not so full-figured woman, and got the woman pregnant. But her and her husband had decided that they were going to open a retreat in the Kentucky mountains, and all of that is aborted when they end up in a divorce. But she's like, you know what? I'm still going to have this retreat center. I'm still going to go on with what I said I was going to do. And so she puts an ad in Craigslist, and she gets the name back Adrian. And so in her imagination, I'm using the imagination again, she's thinking Adrian is a woman. He shows up at the door. He's this gorgeous man. He is not a woman. And she's like, oh my God. Long story short, she ends up allowing him to stay. And he is the artist that is in her basement. And he has a lot of issues. He's basically, sworn off women. He has this, what is it? A photographic memory that really is more of a curse than a blessing. And so he's got just previous sex addict issues, but God has healed him. So you just kind of show like the tension between the two, and they end up working together in a festival for the most beautiful small town in America. And so you just begin to see the walls break down between the two of them. And it's just a very tender love story that begins to unfold.
Let's go back to, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Is that, oh my God, like he might be the one? Or, oh my God, this is a man. I was expecting a woman to help me with this project.
It was a combination of both. It was like, oh my God, what is this gorgeous man doing at my door? Oh my God, I thought this was going to be a woman. I have sworn off men. And she has a very short conversation with him, and she's just like, what am I going to do? And he's very humble, and he's like, I'm tired. I've driven all this, miles to get here. He's like, if in the morning, if you need me to leave, I'll still go. And she's like, something about the sun came up over the sun rose, and it just hit a little bit to the left, and she got a glimpse of what that man looked like. And she gave that man those keys, and she said, you stay in your place and I'll stay in mine. So that's it. And I do interweave like a poetic kind of a theme in my books also. And I'll admit here that in the deepness of my heart, I wanted to be that person that wrote one of the greatest love stories ever. And I believe that God will still allow me to do that.
So I don't read as much as I'd like to, but I don't mind watching a movie. What does it take to turn An Artist in the Basement into a movie?
Getting in the hands of maybe a T.D. Jakes, or maybe somebody, or it takes a script writing, of course. I don't know if I really have the love or the desire to do that, and so it would take that. I've had people approach me before, why don't you put it in a movie? But that takes a lot of work. It takes shopping that script around. So, but I've had many people, my mom and some other friends that have read An Artist in the Basement, and out of all my books, that's their favorite book. And they were like, this should be a movie. So maybe someone out in your camera world, maybe they know like how I can get that into a movie, because I think it would be wonderful.
Wow, okay. I'm gonna take you up on that.
Okay.
I have spent a little bit of time around the Bronze Lens Festival. And that's a film festival that's here in Atlanta. So I will buy a copy of the book and I will put it in the hands of the founder of that particular event and let her pass judgment on it.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gonna say, I want to give you a book. Thank you.
Okay, so you also talk about mental health, purpose, love, redemption, and second chances for women. So first I want to kind of focus on second chances for women. Why do women need second chances?
I think for all three of the books, second chances for life, not really second chances. I mean, if it ends up being a relationship, but in life, I think we all want a second chance, or a third or a fourth, when things go wrong in our life. And so for this book right here, Walking into Love, this is the one that really dealt with mental health and just a second chance to live. Actually, it was for both the characters. And so in this book, the young lady, that's what she's laying down. She was married for like 6 months. And to just a wonderful man, a young couple, they're driving. And I don't know if you've seen like the trucks with the logs on the back. And actually, I've got that on the back of the book. And so one of the logs comes off, goes straight through the car, decapitates her husband, okay? So now, and then the car swerves out of place, they end up against a tree, she can't get out. And then a gentleman who has his own demons shows up on the site, pulls her out across her dead husband's body. And so of course she suddenly is in a mental health crisis at that point, because her husband's head has been decapitated. She's in the car. She ends up sleeping in the same dress for like weeks, and she does end up going to a therapist. And I allowed their paths to connect one day on the street. She doesn't remember seeing him, but she remembers his voice, this raspy voice telling her it's going to be okay. And so his issue is his mother was kidnapped like 15, years ago, never heard anything. So he has made a decision. He hasn't been able to really love or care about anybody again. And then she's in a situation where she can barely even think. So the second chance is, could he get another chance of love? And there was something about, she made such an impression on him when he does pull her out of the car and he has to console her, and he stays there until the police, the ambulance, everyone arrives, and then he leaves. And then she's feeling guilty because she can still hear his voice, but yet she should be grieving her husband. So the second chance is, she's an artist too, so I allow the reader to go along with her journey of growing again and ending up with a second chance of love, and thinking, how can a woman end up with two great loves of her life in a lifetime? So that's her second chance. This is her second chance to become an artist again. And then for him, he adored his mother. And so it's like he gets a second chance to love again. And then there are other characters, even in this book, who've just decided, no, there's no way. And so I allow all of them to have another chance at love again when they thought there's no way that it was possible.
Well, I wouldn't say you have an overactive imagination.
Okay.
I'd say your imagination's in overdrive.
Okay. I know.
That stuff doesn't happen.
I know, it's like black people, a mom who's kidnapped from a grocery store, and then once you hear the plot, and then I have some people coming back into the picture, and people were like, "Are you kidding me? This lady came back," and then I've got a love story going, and they're like, "Sonny, it's too much," but they love the book. And one lady, she in the group that you mentioned,
Mhm. Sisters of Soul?
yeah, she couldn't read past the first chapter. She showed up, but she said, the grief and the way you wrote that grief, she said, I began to weep. And she said, because she had lost her husband in a tragic accident. And she said, I wanted to be here and I wanted to meet you. So that blessed me that I was allowed to capture the grief of it. And I think too, like my sensitivities and how I've been hurt. So I can go in and be able to like write the pain and the feelings because of my oversensitivity to things. God has allowed me to do that.
Wow. Okay. Now let's talk about the mental health, the purpose, the love, and the redemption.
Okay. So, so for her, she does end up going to a psychiatrist. Okay. So that's the mental health part of it. And then you actually like get to go through it with her. Her mother's actually a therapist too in this book. And so in the other two books, the mental health really is growing through Christ. And even though these are Christian books, they're not church Christian books. So I allow the people to have personal relationships, and it's not necessarily built on the church intervention. And so in that, I think there's a mental health development that you can see the characters actually growing. And based upon their desire to grow and to humble themselves, then there's a redemption that occurs through this of like, you know what, I can be more. So for an artist in the basement, even though she was jilted and just the devastation of it, and to know that I'm worthy of being loved again, I'm worthy of being able to start a successful business, I'm worthy of being in this small town and being able to develop new family relationships. And I got an older couple in that book as well. And they're funny, they're adorable. It's an interracial relationship, and Clyde is a white guy who's like the mayor of the city, and there's a black woman named Mabel that he loved all his life, and he couldn't have her because of the racial history. But once her husband dies, then they get together again, and they're kind of like an odd couple, but there's redemption for them as well that happens. And then in Falling for the Shoemaker, it's a beautiful twist of there's a young woman who is a Christian, and she falls in love with an atheist, and it's called Falling for the Shoemaker.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So she's the shoemaker in it, and he finds her so adorable, and but he can't understand this whole religion thing, no sex before marriage, you're crazy. But he finds her absolutely adorable, and their commonality is she's quite the shoemaker, and then something tragic actually happens in their friendship, and they switch places, and so she has a crisis in faith, and he actually becomes a Christian. So the redemption is they switch spaces, and then he begins to offer her something that she didn't think she had. Because a lot of us, we can be Christian and we love God, but then when a crisis hits, that really shows where is our true faith. What have we actually stored up that can actually take us through it?
Now, when you're talking about your books, each one of them has had, I won't call them all crisis, but they've been striking events.
Yes.
So is that the way to develop a great book, or is that the Sonny Hill style that makes Sonny Hill's books work?
Kind of the trope for any romance, and we can even think about movies that we've watched. I just recently watched Lady Sings the Blues, and over the holidays, somebody mentioned it, and I was like, well, let me go back and watch it. Of course, that was all tragedy, but that was real life. That was true life. And so for any relationship, even in life, I mean, we are tested
Over and over again.
over and over again, and sometimes, and we are tested in these relationships. And so it's like, how do we navigate past that? And I also wanted to write stories, because I think sometimes, I mean, it's changing now, but there was a time when our biggest issues in our relationship, we were depicted, it was drugs, it was gangster kind of stuff, you know. And so I really wanted to write books that didn't focus on those kind of stereotypical tragedies, but just real life. Like, we get sick, you know. What happens when a loved one dies? You know, what happens through just rejection, and how do we navigate through the process? How do we grow? Your husband's head is decapitated, you know what I'm saying? That's trauma. How do you deal with that? You know, someone that you fall in love with, you're never supposed to, the Bible says, don't be yoked up with an unbeliever, you know? How do they manage that? What happens when she has a crisis of faith? So I just want to take readers through that journey, and to know that hopefully people can identify with those things of growth. So growth is a major theme that I want in my books.
You know, I asked that question, then as you were explaining it, I kind of walked myself back through my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of events, some major, some not so much so,
Mm-hmm.
but they all kind of shaped me to be who I am today.
Yeah.
And they obviously all shaped how I navigated through life as well. So I can see how, especially those major events, can make for a good book. 'Cause I don't think I have a good book in me.
Well, you're giving us the opportunity this year, but you never know. Sometimes they call it like writing by the seat of your pants, you know? So you could start writing something and then think, oh my God, I think I've got something here. So
Well,
you never know.
years ago what I thought is that, okay, when you get filthy rich,
Uh-huh.
you can write a book and say, you came to Atlanta, you actually walked to Atlanta
Right.
with 35 cents in your pocket.
Right.
And you got here, your shoes were worn out.
Right,
And that's
right.
why you start your book out.
Right, right.
It's not believable.
Right.
Yeah.
But you never know. Hey, you help. Hey, which one? With Artists in help. We help get this one a movie. I give you a little something for it, okay?
Oh, you're bringing off some.
I'll bring you a little something for it, yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.